Morning, all. So Jets are 32nd because, of course, they are. It's not actually glued on there. You can get the Jets off of there because I want to be able to use this board for other things. But after last night's game against New England, yeah, that's just awful. And the interesting thing is, if they'd beaten New England, they don't move up from 32nd. So it's not like if they won last night, they would have moved out of last place. But at least they wouldn't be so far into last place. At least there would have been, I don't know, some hope that maybe the team could have won a game or two for the rest of the way. Gone 2-14, or dream of 3-13, right? And that was a collapse. And then the throw into double coverage. What I couldn't figure out was, why are you throwing a Hail Mary pass when you're up by 10? Why are you throwing a Hail Mary pass when there's 6 minutes left in the game? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? I understand Flacco had touchdowns, he had everything going on, and then I don't know what he was thinking there. And then Cam Newton, I didn't think Newton had a very good game. I didn't. I thought Newton was, and the Patriots in general were mediocre. Just the Jets kept saying, "Do you want the ball? Do you want it?" Oh, they didn't get that play. It's all right. We got a holding penalty. We gave them the first down. It's okay. We threw an unnecessarily hard hit that got us a personal foul. It's okay. So whether it was boneheaded plays or stupid penalties, Jets had it going on. It got to the point where whenever there was a flag, I was like, it's on the Jets. Even if at that point in the game you're thinking, all right, well, that should be on the Patriots. I was like, no, every single penalty is going to be on the Jets because they're imploding, and I don't know what's happening. But they have nice helmets. So if you're a Jets fan, you can at least tell people, hey, we have nice helmets. You talking about? And at least it looks like you have the week off. At least it looks like they have the week off. All right, number 31 is Dallas. Dallas almost won this week. They lost to Pittsburgh 24-19. It was an unconvincing win for the Steelers. So if you're a Steelers fan saying this game will prove something for Shannon here in his next power ranking, it really didn't. Really didn't. The Cowboys just they don't win. This is an issue, and doesn't look like they have a game this week. And so for Dallas, it's been a poor season, and it just keeps getting poorer. As it looks like there's one team in that division that's going to be half decent, and it's not going to be Dallas, and it doesn't look like it's going to be Washington either. They lost to the Giants 23-20. Now I've been switching out what I use in place of the Washington logo, and this week I picked Kevin Malone of The Office with that very, very certain grin there. Yeah, I got that. I got this. So that's the grin of a team that knows they're better than the Cowboys and the Jets. In Washington, they lost against the Giants, which means the Giants have kind of stayed relevant in that division because it's that division. But yeah, so Washington, they lose their opportunity to keep that race going. We used to call that a turtle derby in hockey. I guess we can call it the turtle derby of the NFC East, right? No, you don't want to use it? All right. Number 29. And for 29, these guys lost 27-25 against Houston. This coming week, they're in Green Bay, and that's the Jaguars. So somewhere Jason Mendoza cries because the Jacksonville Jaguars are still bad. They're just it's just they're not very good, and they lost against Houston. Barn burner of a game, close game and all, but they managed to lose that game, and so for Jacksonville, they're not going to the playoffs this year. And I think it stands to reason that none of these teams should be in the running for a playoff spot, although, again, the NFC East, you just never know. But that does not affect Jacksonville, who are not in the NFC East. Just the Washington Kevins and the Dallas Cowboys. Washington Kevins has kind of a nice name to it, and you could have Kevin Malone on the helmet. I think that could work. I do. I really do. Number 28. The Giants beat Washington, and this coming week they're at home against Philadelphia. So this is where things get kind of sort of interesting. If the Giants can pull off a win against Philadelphia, they're still in this, because of course they are. And yeah, we'll see if they can pull off a win over the Eagles. It feels like things are getting better for Philadelphia week in and week out, But the Giants' last couple of games, I don't know. Maybe we're gonna see a Giants team go on a run within their division, not against anybody outside the division, but within the division. Number 27, they won. They won, but I'm not a huge fan of how they won, and now they're at home against Baltimore this week, and that's the Patriots. The Patriots it just looks bad. Now, it's possible that escaping that New York Jets game last night without a loss, escaping that humiliation with the field goal with 3 seconds left and all that, it's possible that turns things around for the New England Patriots. But I don't think so. I don't think New England is going anywhere. And I think Baltimore should be able to go in and take them out. Based on the fact that, New England barely it was the last play of the game that they beat the New York Jets. So, and that was because the Jets just kind of, they panicked with a lead, I guess. I don't know. That was, what a creative loss that was, grabbing it from the jaws of victory like that. I cannot commend the Jets enough on their determination to remain 32nd. If you cheer for the Jets, you have my condolences, and that's from somebody who cheers for the Bengals and the Chargers. And I cheer for the A's in baseball. It's bad. I'm just wearing the A's jersey because I don't have very many excuses to wear it. Baseball is not going to be back for a little while, so I want to wear my A's jersey. So there's that. Number 26. And they beat Jacksonville 27-25. Now they're going to Cleveland. And I think that's an interesting test. So Houston coming off of a win. Now they go into Cleveland. That's a game Cleveland should win. That's a game where Cleveland should be able to get back on the winning track. They should be able to get it back together. They have this week off and all that other wonderful stuff. But you just never know. You just never know. Houston, maybe they'll go into Cleveland and Browns fans will be like, oh, not again. This story again. But we were good this year, we swear. Number 25. They lost this week. They lost, what was the final score of that game? 31-26 against Vegas. And now this week they're going to Miami. And that's the Chargers. Yay, the Chargers are back in the bottom row. And I feel bad because Herbert's a really good quarterback. He is. And offensively, they're putting up points. Their defense sucks. Their defense, not good. And it is becoming more and more apparent to me every week that when the Chargers need to stop, they're not going to get it. So it's one of those things where your team has a lead and you go, all right, well, if the defense holds, me as a Chargers fan, it's like, great, here we go. There's no anticipation for me that they're going to hold the lead. None. There's no anticipation for me that they're going to win the game. It's just, all right, so how are they going to blow this time? That's creative. All right, well, we'll come back next week. See how they blow it next week. So, yeah, the Chargers, they're in better luck next year territory as well. Number 24, coming off of a loss 34-20 against the Minnesota Vikings. And now they're going to be at home to Washington this week, and that is Detroit. It was a rough week for Detroit. Not going to lie. Ugly score at the end of it, and Detroit's definitely looking like an also-ran this year. And now, at home against Washington, that's a game they should win. Kevin Malone aside, that's a game that Detroit should win. Absolutely. Number 23, they lost to Atlanta this week, 34-27. And next week they're in Las Vegas. So for the Broncos, I guess they can beat the Chargers, but faint praise. And now this week coming off of a loss against Atlanta, which I thought kind of proves Atlanta might be better than their record. But it also shows that for Denver, they're in the have-not category as well. And then 22, the team that beat them, Atlanta. So for Denver, they're going into Las Vegas this week. For Atlanta, the Atlanta Falcons are, I don't have them up here, so I guess they have the week off. There you go. Confidence builder going into the week off. There you go. Again, though, Atlanta, they're playing for pride right now. I always appreciate teams playing well when they're playing for pride, not just throwing in the towel. Number 21, and I kind of had a feeling these guys might come back. So for the Vikings, they destroy Detroit. Keep in mind they beat Green Bay. And so for Minnesota, are they off this coming week too? Nope, they're in Chicago. That's the big game right there. If Minnesota's going to get back into this, if Minnesota's going to maybe go on an extended run, they have to go in and beat Chicago this week. No way around it. If they can beat Chicago this week, yeah, they're kind of still in this. If they're not able to beat Chicago this week, then that's kind of all she wrote. But they have to go in. They have to beat Chicago, just to mathematically keep things interesting. I'm not saying that they will, but I may very well be keeping my eyes on that game. So, yeah, we'll see whether or not they can maintain that momentum coming out of this week. Number 20, they didn't play this week. And next week they are in Pittsburgh. That's the Bengals. I expect the Bengals to get killed by Pittsburgh. If the Bengals stay in that game against Pittsburgh, if it's a really close game, I think that's more damning of the Steelers than it is complimentary of the Bengals. Although we haven't had the game yet, so you just never know. I love Joe Burrow. I think the guy's really good. I also think the Bengals are building in the right direction. And we'll see how long it takes before they're competitive. But the Steelers should take them out. It should be like a 35-17 kind of score. It really should not be close between those two teams. Number 19. They lost at home 34-17 against Green Bay this week. Now this coming week, they are in New Orleans. That's a big ouch. If you're a Niners fan and you're tired of injuries and all the downbeats this year, maybe skip the game against New Orleans. New Orleans looks like a machine, and San Francisco does not. And again, yes, injuries have ravaged this team, and they really were up against it right out of the gate this year. But going into New Orleans after getting spanked by Green Bay, a Green Bay team that needed to have a comeback after last week and did very well. Yeah, things for San Francisco looks kind of bleak. In a very tough division, things look kind of bleak for them. Although, that division had its setbacks this week as well. Number 18. And you know what? They had a good week. Carolina had a good week this week, and now they're going to be at home against Tampa. They only lost 33-31 against Kansas City, and I really, for a moment there, thought they might win it. I did. I thought Carolina might beat Kansas City, and it was actually a very competitive game. I thought Carolina played really well. That being said, does Kansas City have to play a little tighter in their next game? Yep. The good news for Kansas City, they are off. That's the bye week for them. So they're going to have a chance to maybe go over how they allowed 31 points against Carolina and try to prevent that from happening again next week. But yeah, so Carolina is 18th, 17th. Did they play this week? No, they did not. And now this week they're in against the Giants, I should say, and that is the Eagles. Yeah, the Eagles are almost second row. So if the Eagles beat the Giants, they shouldn't be second row for beating the Giants, but it's possible they beat another team. That they move into the second row because another team has dropped off or lost an embarrassing game, so that moves them up. So for the Eagles, who are likely going to win the NFC East, if they can go and beat the Giants this week, they do themselves a favor in that direction as well. Number 16. And I don't see them in the game. What game is on this side? But this week they're at home against Seattle, and that's the Rams. So for the LA Rams, this is a really important week. If they can beat Seattle, keep themselves within striking distance, and Seattle does not look that impressive right now. If the Rams can beat Seattle, they're still in this. Especially with the fact that San Francisco seems to be falling off. So as long as the Rams can avoid falling off more themselves, they're still in this. If Seattle goes in and beats them, then they're going to have a harder time of it. But yeah, Rams, top two rows. If Seattle whoops them and if Philadelphia whoops the Giants, it's possible we see a switch there. Number 15. And they lost at home 24-10 this week against Baltimore. Next week they're in Tennessee, and that's the Colts. Indianapolis is still, I believe, a good team. They had a hard time against Baltimore, but that to me is not a damning indictment of the team. It just shows you Baltimore's a really good team. Baltimore, in my eyes, is a Super Bowl contender. Whereas Indianapolis, their record is very good. I believe they're still 5-3. But at the same time, they did show against Baltimore. Baltimore's the better team. I believe Baltimore's the better team between the two. And Indianapolis, that's probably about where they belong. Now at 14, and this one really surprises me. I can guarantee you they've never been this high on the board. So they beat Arizona 34-31 this week. Now next week they're at home against the Chargers. And that's Miami. So congratulations, Miami. You're about to beat the Chargers. Miami this year, it's crazy to think about how bad they were last year and how good they are this year. And that they're winning these games that last year they wouldn't have even been close. Going into Arizona, pretty good record. Team that, with a win could have pulled themselves up a little bit further in the standings. And Miami beat them 34-31. So kudos to the Miami Dolphins for being relevant now. And a division that was dominated for the last 2+ decades by the New England Patriots suddenly seems kind of wide open. And it feels like it's back to the 80s where it was Miami and Buffalo fighting for the lead in that division. Miami-Buffalo. It was one of those two that was going to win that division. It felt like that anyways, to me as a kid watching it. So that's kind of nice, that throwback. And the Dolphins have never been one of these teams that's gone out and got a new fancy logo. It's stayed pretty darn consistent all the way through. So that's kind of nice too. So the Bills. So it really looks and feels like the 80s with these two teams both being relevant. Number 13. Don't believe they played this week. Nope. And now next week they're at home against Houston, and that's the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, really it's simple. You win against Houston. You play the kind of games you were playing early in the season. It shouldn't be a problem. And Cleveland stays in the hunt. And maybe we see them have a wild card game in the playoffs. That would be really nice. I would really like to see Cleveland in the playoffs. That'd be a very fun experience. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But Cleveland, I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for the Browns. I fully admit I'm rooting for the Browns. I want to see them in the playoffs. I'd like to see by the time the playoffs come around some version of the dog pound existing where you got all the guys wearing the masks and doing the woof woof woof. Back Arsenio days. Yeah, they still do that. Number 12. They lost this week, didn't they? Just looking over here. Yeah, Chicago lost to Tennessee 24-17, which was a very important game for both teams. And now they're at home against Minnesota. So that's the Bears. And really, this is where the Bears have to they have to take care of Minnesota and keep that separation between themselves and the teams below them. So for Chicago, tough loss this week. I still have them top 12, so I didn't punish them and move them way down. Because believe me, I would love to have Miami just way up here, but I'm holding back on that. Miami is in the top 2 rows. I have Chicago at 12th, and we'll see how things go from here. They have to win against Minnesota, though. Number 11. These guys beat the LA Chargers. Now they've got Denver. And that's the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are a good team. They are. And I think they've been better than their record. I think that's something that they've shown a couple of times this year. And they once again showed that the Chargers, when you need that defense, it's not there. All we need is to stop. It's fine. They didn't bother. It's fine. It's good. So the Chargers blow it against the Raiders, and now the Raiders have Denver. That's a very winnable game for them. So they can get on a little bit of a mini run here, and for Vegas, we'll see how far they can go. And if you're a Raiders fan in other locations, and if you're ticked off that the team suddenly becomes a plus 500 decent looking team in Vegas, well, I could understand that. Number 10, they lost against Miami this week. Now next week they are at home against Buffalo. So for the Cardinals, this is a huge week. So you've lost against Miami. Miami looks pretty good. Now you're against Buffalo, a team that is arguably better than Miami. And for the Cards, if they blow this one, they'll probably find themselves down as low as 13th next week. And Arizona, they've looked good, really good at times this year, but that's We'll see whether or not that's a troubling loss against Miami or if it tells us Miami's really good. We'll find that out as the year goes along. But I dropped them down to 10th. I didn't go crazy and drop them way down. I know they were 8th last week, so they only drop a couple of spots. They still have a very good record, and all they have to do is beat Buffalo, which is a tall task. Number 9, and this is the lowest this team's been this year. They lost 44-34 against Buffalo. And now they're in against the Rams. That's right, the Rams at home against Seattle. And there's Seattle at 9th. I was just thinking, did I forget the Rams had a game? Anyways, yeah. So Seattle, and I know this is the old logo, but I like the old logo. I like the old head there. We'll see with the Seahawks whether or not the defense can they get it together. The Seahawks defense just isn't any good. This is the reality. And I know if you're a Buffalo fan, you're gonna say, hey, that's not fair. Yeah. Buffalo is good. And Allen's a great quarterback and all that, but that defense for Seattle is some special kind of terrible right now. It's just bad. There's not much else to say about it. They're allowing way too many yards, way too many points, and it has to be frustrating for Russell Wilson because much like Herbert for San Diego / LA. See, I knew I'd call them San Diego sooner or later, so another dollar in the bucket. But again, it's the same thing where you go down the field and you score yourself a touchdown. And you go, all right. And then you sit down on the bench and you go, what are they going to do with this? You going to blow it? They blew it. I'm back on the field already. All right, cool. Excellent. That's great. That's good news. And it feels like that's what's happening with Seattle. Number 8, after the win this week against Chicago, and now next week they're at home against the Indianapolis Colts, and that's Tennessee. Tennessee has been up and down this year. But I have them back in the top row based on this week's victory. We'll see whether or not they can stay there. If they can win at home against Indianapolis, that's huge. If they lose against Indianapolis, it'll speak well for the Colts and not very well of Tennessee in the overall grand scheme of things. I don't know whether Tennessee's a legit contender or not. I have no idea. But I do know they should be in the playoffs considering their current record. But they have to put it together for more than one game. They have to show this week against Indianapolis. They're in it. They're going to do this. Number 7, and I toyed with really dropping these guys down. And this week they're going into Carolina. So for the Buccaneers, what a horribly embarrassing 38-3 loss against New Orleans. And they said too that coming out of this game, it's taken the odds of them winning the Super Bowl and kind of flipped them with New Orleans. Where it's like, hey, we like New Orleans now. You don't want to overreact to one game. So I didn't. I did drop them down, but they're still in the top row. But my God, if they go in against Carolina and they lose against Carolina, then I can go ahead and drop them out of that top row, and we can start to have a conversation about what in the world is wrong with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's the most embarrassing loss that I can imagine. It was just awful. And the fact that it was 31-0 in the third quarter, right? It was an embarrassing loss for Tampa. They've got to pick themselves up and get it together because they really can't afford to have another game like that. I don't see how they could have another game like that. Number 6, they had a win this week over Seattle, 44-34. Now they're going in against Arizona. It's Buffalo. The Bills are back in the top row. And honestly, beating Seattle, I will both definitely condemn the defense for Seattle, and I will praise Buffalo for being able to break it down like that. 44 points is a lot in any football game, even on the CFL side of things. Canadian team scores 44 points, that still feels like a lot. And remember, we give guys points for missing the field goal. Well, he tried. Let's give him a point. So, Buffalo put up a ton of points. This week is going to show us just how close to contention they really are. And again, if you're a Buffalo fan, does this get you all excited for the off season, for the postseason, I guess? Or is it just, well, we'll see what happens when they get that playoff game? Can they win that playoff game? Like, is the excitement dulled somewhat by the fact this team has struggled to win a playoff game for what seems like forever? So, yeah, let me know in the comments. Buffalo, though, number 6. Number 5, they went in and they whooped San Francisco 34-17. And now this week they're at home against Jacksonville, and that's the Green Bay Packers. So maybe the loss against Minnesota was exactly what they needed and woke them up, or it shows you that Minnesota's better than their record and San Francisco's really beat up and injured. Either way you look at it, Green Bay now is seemingly back on track. Very likely to end up with a top seed in the playoffs. And there will be plenty of discussions about whether or not they are a Super Bowl contender from now until the end of the year. And then when we get to the playoff games, that's going to be a lot of fun. That's where I'll really get into the meat and potatoes of the games in all likelihood, depending on what's going on with hockey at that time. But Green Bay looks pretty good, and they might be a good bet on a Super Bowl, depending on your odds and where you're betting and all that. Remember, gamble responsibly. Always assume you're going to lose. That's what I do. Because I always do. Number 4, the New Orleans Saints destroyed Tampa 38-3. New Orleans now is at home against San Francisco this week. New Orleans should be able to go on a nice long run. Drew Brees, aging's not an issue for him. And New Orleans showed no mercy, and sometimes that's the best way to go about it. They're definitely a contender in my eyes right now. I would say that any team from, I'll say 6 and up. That's right, Buffalo. I'll say 6 and up right now. To me, look like they're contenders. You're welcome. Tampa, I'm sorry. You can't lose 38-3 and then have me with a straight face say that they still look like contenders. But New Orleans, they're for real, and we'll see how far they can go, because they've proven in the past they can go pretty far in the playoffs. So yeah, number 4 is New Orleans. Against San Francisco, they should be able to win that. Number 3, after the win over Indianapolis, 24-10. Now this coming week, they're in New England, and Baltimore is kind of sitting pretty. The interesting thing with Baltimore is that you're going in New England now. Normally that would be a stressful game. For them, they've got to look at this like, all right, we're going to win this. New England only beat the Jets because the Jets set a bomb and then blew themselves up. I don't know how they botched that game. I cannot describe to you just how it's 27-17 for the Jets. And I was like, they're going to blow this, aren't they? There's less than half a quarter left. How are they going to blow this? All they need to do is get a few first downs and just eat the clock, and they should be able to. They're not going to do it, are they? No. 10 seconds later, Hail Mary. And of course New England got it because they're the Jets. So for Baltimore, they just have to not be the Jets, which is pretty easy if you're Baltimore because they're not the Jets. And that's actually a good motto in life. Don't be the Jets. You wake up, you get yourself ready for work in the morning. You go, you know what? Today I'm not the New York Jets. I'm not going to be the Jets. Not the Jets. And then you go out and you do your thing. And Baltimore's not the Jets. Number 2, and this is where so Pittsburgh's unbeaten, but they really made it harder on themselves than it should have been against the Dallas Cowboys, winning 24-19. Now for Pittsburgh, this coming week, they're at home against Cincinnati. Should be able to win that one. Now, of course, the interesting part is that for Kansas City, they barely escape against Carolina 33-31, and now Kansas City has the week off. It is possible that the Steelers, should they come out this week and prove themselves to be the most dominant team in the league against the Cincinnati Bengals, that the Steelers could take first place next week. But because both the Steelers and the Chiefs won their games this week, not necessarily the most convincing victories against teams that are both under 500, I didn't feel like I could justify having the Steelers jump over the Chiefs, considering that the Steelers barely beat the Cowboys, who are on the number 7, number 8 quarterback in their organization. Is Troy Aikman warming up yet? Like, just, get Tony Romo out of the booth. Come on, Tony, get out here. We need your help. You still know what a football looks like? You're hired. I still have Kansas City at number 1. I still have the Steelers at number 2. Basically, the top 3 stay the same. I didn't see anything this week to tell me otherwise. All 3 teams won in the top 3. The top 2 a little less convincing, but I couldn't have Baltimore ahead of Pittsburgh, and I can't justify Baltimore ahead of Kansas City. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and yep, there's another week of NFL Power Rankings. Thanks for all your support. The Jets are probably the worst team in professional sport. I just can't fathom that game. The play calling, for any Jets fan that's like, oh, we should fire the coach. I'm right there with you now, because some of that play calling, I'm like, Hail Mary here. Why? What are you doing? Why aren't you trying to eat the clock? Why aren't you trying to kill the clock? You're trying to get fired. So, yeah, no, I get it. Why don't we try Hail Mary? Coach, really, no. It's 1st and 10. We've got 6 minutes. Why are we trying? No, just pitch it down the field. I don't want to pitch it. There's double coverage. Well, they'll just collide with each other like Keystone Cops. How do you know that? All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, like I said. And I do look forward to all the new subscribers that hit that subscribe button when they're browsing the way through. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.